consistent. Um, Once I start getting money from doing this, I certainly will be more consistent. Until then, c'est la vie. Um, with everything going on in the news about Venezuela, the the capture of Nicolas Maduro, now it's the question of, are we going to do this in other countries? And if so, are these going to be temporary uh, acquisitions or occupations of these countries, or are we going to make them permanent territories of the U.S.? I'm like, I'm not a neocon by any means, but I have no problem with us keeping these territories as our own. And it kind of fits into the whole America First thing as well, as many commentators have mentioned that America First means locking down, you know, the North American and South American continent as vassal states of the United States. Um, and if that seems harsh, I want people to realize that during the 19th century and early 20th century, we could have kept most of North America and South America as territories of the United States, but we gave gave them their own autonomy to be sovereign states. That didn't necessarily have to go that way. If you look, like I said, if you look back into 19th and early 20th century, it could have easily gone the other way, that the that the that the countries that now make up Latin America could have been either part of the United States or vassal states of the U.S. During the times of of war. We basically safeguarded Latin American countries from European conquest. I want I want that to repeat that, since I see people coming into the chat room. Hello, everyone. During the 19th century and even into the even into the early 20th century, uh, there were times of war and conquest, and America, the U.S. of A, specifically the United States, had basically safeguarded Latin America from European conquest. And we could have kept these countries under the occupation of the United States, but we allowed them sovereignty. But it was the United States that safeguarded most of Latin America from European conquest. So I just want people to, understand that. So, if it were left to me, I would have no problem with Venezuela becoming the 51st state. I would take it even further. Okay. I I would say that all of the occupied territories that the United States now possesses should all be turned into states. We also have unoccupied territories, so that's another story, like the U.S. minor outlying islands and whatever. But I'm talking about all the occupied places. So all the current occupied territories, I would turn into states. We need to stop saying we. I've hated how presidents have kicked the football down the field each time, say with Puerto Rico, as whether to make them a state or not. Like, let them vote on it. If they vote on yes, then we'll make them a state. No, we don't have to do that. Literally, they didn't do that with Hawaii. Hawaii is one of our most prosperous states in the union. We didn't give the native Hawaiians a choice. We just pretty much bogarted that country, that a kingdom. It was a kingdom that we just bogarted. At least the Puerto Ricans are a part of our country, despite some people not realizing that. But in any case, we don't have to wait for them to vote on it. We could just make it happen. I would say make Puerto Rico a state, make Guam a state, make American Samoa a state, and make what's the other Pacific Island country out there? Whatever. So make all Pacific Island territory states, make Puerto Rico state. Boom, 54 states right there. As far as this whole Greenland thing, I wouldn't mind making that a state either. It would safeguard our our Arctic security. And yes, we do already have a standing treaty with the Danish government to put our armed forces in Greenland. And yes, we could fortify Greenland with our armed forces more than we have done so. But that's not really why Trump wants it. He wants it for the resources, including the people, the the uh, the Greenland people who are mostly of European descent and who are prosperous people. That's why he wants it for the resources and the people. He doesn't want it merely to fortify our Arctic security. Also, making it a state is a part of making it. It would be part of fortifying it as Arctic security because people aren't going to f with it because it's part of us, as opposed to being part of the Danish kingdom, which really can't defend it. If another invasive force wanted to come through Greenland, Denmark isn't going to stop them. Denmark is not going to stop them. How? With when 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 has Denmark fought a war since the early 20th century? Since Denmark has not like I mean, yes, I know you're gonna say World War II, but again, that's that's the latest. Isn't like the 1940s. That's probably like the last time you saw Denmark fight anything. Now I'm sure they've had some of their military forces assist us in places like the Middle East or whatever. But again, when has Denmark really put in that work? When have you seen like Danish soldiers downrange putting in that work? Not very often. To be to be charitable, not very often. If I weren't charitable, I've been like not at all. And that's nothing wrong. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Denmark. Seems very cool, be a nice place to live. I'm talking about they if there was an invading force, they're not going to do anything to stop it as far with Greenland, including us. To be honest, if we do decide to take Greenland as our own, I don't think it would be militarily done. I think it would be put to a vote with the Greenlanders, and if they said, "Yeah, we wouldn't mind being a part of America," boom, done. Again, Denmark isn't going to fight us. Excuse me. Grab something here. I want to see what Mrs. Contrarian is sending me. But yeah, guys, I mean, so I would for the people here, I actually want feedback on this. I don't want people just simply saying hi. Like actually voice an opinion here, or I mean, if it, and an opinion based on what we're talking about. If it's not about what we're talking about, I really have no interest in a bunch of foreign people jumping into the chat room just saying hi. Like I would like some input on on this topic. Like what say you guys? Should Venezuela be a 51st state? Should we, or even if it's not a 51st state, should we hold the territory indefinitely? being that it's the greatest oil resource in the world outside of the OPEC controlled countries, which means we can actually be free of OPEC control and drive down costs so much in America with transportation and other resources that we could bankrupt these OPEC countries so that they can't use these their their oil rich countries to fund militant organizations against us. But yeah, I'm not going to answer retards on here. So if you're some retard autistic twit, I'm not going to answer you. If you're some neurodivergent or ADHD suffering moron, I'm not going to answer you. If you want to ask me a question that's not germane to talking about Venezuela, put it in a super chat, or I will thoroughly ignore you. That's the only time I'm going to address that. But yeah, guys. So again, the Venezuela was a textbook military operation taken um, taken under by Delta Force, which technically doesn't exist as far as what the American government will say, and the 160th SOAR, which is a special operations unit, aviation unit that runs within the U.S. Army. These guys are badass. The reason why the 160th SOAR are so badass is because they have to transport the most badass special operators in the world, like Delta Force and the Green Beret and Rangers. So the fact that they have to give these guys a lift to infiltrate and exfiltrate uh, means they have to be as just as good as the people they're transporting. So they can go. So not only will 160th uh, pilots uh, be able to take these special operators downrange to put in that work, they themselves can put in that work. All right, they themselves can put in that work, guys. Um, I don't want to get into too much, military gibberish because people are like, "What are you talking about?" Believe the SOAR, the 160th SOAR, the SOAR stands for Special Operations Aviation's Reconnaissance. I believe that's what it stands for. And again, they are because some people don't know that there are there's aviation outside of the Air Force. The Navy has it, the Marines has it, the Army has it. In fact, Air Force started in the Army. They used to be the Air Corps, and then they became a separate military branch, and even formed their own military department, the Department of the Air Force. Um, Similar to how Space Force has become a separate military branch when it was once part of the Air Force. But unlike the Air Force, Space Force is still under the Department of the Air Force, just as the Marines are under the Department of the Navy. Okay. I also believe the Coast Guard. Also, I believe Coast Guard has their own aviation unit as well. But trust me, there are plenty. If someone wanted to go into the army but also be a pilot, it is very possible because again, the army has its own aviation. They mainly consist of helicopters though, not flying jets. If you want to fly jets, that is the Air Force or the Navy. So I that should I should probably clarify. Like, yeah, if you want to fly fighter jets and you're high speed like that, that is the Air Force or the Navy. They have the fighter jets. But if you want to be a pilot, say like with helicopters and stuff like that, then yes, you have the Army or the Marines or the Coast Guard. I don't know what Space Force has, so don't ask me. I think the majority of the work that they do is chairborne. Like most of the stuff they do is behind the desk, and there's nothing wrong with that because they do some very high tech stuff. And a lot that appeals to a lot of people who want to be able to do stuff like that, which would translate well to a civilian a civilian occupation. But for someone who's young and healthy and has a sense of adventure, if they want to be running and gunning, then the Space Force isn't for them. I kind of wanted both when I went in. I wanted to be running and gunning a little bit, but I also wanted to do something that was high tech. I didn't really do either, to be honest. I ended up didn't really doing honest. I mean, excuse me, either one. Hey, what's up, Gerald? But yeah, back to the subject. So, like I said, so Delta Force pulled off a textbook extraction with the capture of Nicolas Maduro out of Caracas, Venezuela, from out of a, you know, basically out of a fortified palace that he's in. Kyle says jets are fixed wing as opposed to helicopter blades. Both use jet engines. Yeah, but I was pretty clear. I said fighter. I said fighter jets. A helicopter is not a fighter jet. Like no one's going to mistake a helicopter for a fighter jet. When someone says fighter jet, you're thinking of like you know the classic F-16 or something like that. Like you think like someone you hear fighter jet, you're thinking you know you're thinking Top Gun, right? No one's going to confuse fighter jet with a helicopter. But I get your point. Yes, both use jet engines. I definitely wasn't denying that. Also, there are planes flown. There are planes flown in the army, but they're not fighter jets. The C-130s, for instance, C-130 rolling down the strip, airborne rangers about to take a trip. Airborne ranger. Yeah, I mean we have planes, but they're not fighter jets. We have helicopters. They have jet engines, but they're not fighter jets. That's what I'm saying. There's no as someone can correct someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no fighter jets in the army. There's no fighter jets in the army. There's no fighter jets in the Marines. There's no fighter jets in the Coast Guard. But there are aviation units in all of those branches, and there are planes in the army because, like I said, Air Force started from the army, just as Space Force started from the Air Force. So yeah, but like anyway, whatever we sent in 160 of SOAR, the um, special operations army unit to ride those Delta Force boys down to Venezuela and put in that work. And they did a textbook extraction. None of them died. None of the no pilots died. No Delta Force operators died. It was sweet. And then this had to have been something that's been planned for months. And looking at psychological operations, like we've been warning Maduras. Maduro, sorry, for months. Like those hits when those drug transporting boats, that was his warning when he was talking that tough talk, calling us cowards, saying we're not gonna come get him. Look, us making sure he had footage of us dropping dropping it like it's hot on those drug transporter boats. That was that was psyops. We were letting him know this is your warning. This is your warning. So, and and Trump has intimated that he might do this with other countries. He's talking tough with the Colombians. So, I don't know I don't know what's up with the passport bros down in Colombia, but you guys might, they might want to, have a plan B. Maybe Brazil or the DR. But for all those passport bros down in Colombia, might want to be looking at a plan B or a plan C, like again, Brazil or the DR or somewhere like that, in case it gets hot. But because let's think. Come on. When you think of Colombia, the first thing that pops into most people's head is cocaine. Let's keep it. Let's keep it 100 here. When you think of Colombia, most people think cocaine and Pablo Escobar. He's made intimations against Cuba. Um, we'll see. I don't. Again, people think Trump isn't smart just because he's inarticulate. However, he's not actually inarticulate. He likes to speak off the cuff because I want to address this very quickly. There is a tactic amongst Republican elite that they intentionally talk in a more yokel fashion to to ingratiate themselves with um, average Americans. The difference, the reason being is so for younger people, they don't realize that back in the '90s, the Republicans were seen as elite and aloof, the way Democrats are today. They kind of changed that up. Um, Many of the folks who lived down south, those Republicans knew to speak and act in a more folksy way to um, become more more in tune with the locals. And this is something George Bush did. He spoke about this many years ago after his presidency that his Bushisms was an intentional device to make him seem more relatable to the average American. Because think about it, he wouldn't have been relatable to the average American. He was a nepo baby who was a son of a former president, and Bush Senior was head of the CIA, a vice president, and a former U.S. president. They came from an elite East Coast family and decided to, become carpetbaggers down in Texas. He would have been very aloof to to most Americans. And he was a Yale graduate with who joined the Skull and Bone Society. And he, you know, his family would have been very aloof. Trump also Comes from an elite family. His father was a multimillionaire. Went to elite, was schooled in elite institutions. Trump made himself more relatable as well by deciding, when he addressed the press, he wouldn't use a teleprompter like Kamala. This is why she always came off as so um, stilted and unrelatable to a lot of people because she always chose to read from a prompter, and she couldn't think well on her feet because when she did talk off the cuff, she sounded very incoherent. So it was funny that people made fun of Trump for sounding inarticulate when he would talk off the cuff. But when she did so, she couldn't do it. She needed a prompter. And he says he talks without using a prompter intentionally to come off more relatable. That is a Republican tactic that's been used for decades. Um, but getting back to my original point about him speaking in a folksy way, people assumed that he wasn't that smart, but I want to guarantee you that the man is strategic. You don't become a real estate mogul out of nowhere. He doesn't he doesn't show all the, he keeps some of his cards close to his chest. So when he's saying, we might go after Colombia next, we might go over Cuba next. Look, we, and more importantly, they don't know whether he's genuine or not. What they do know is they have to take him seriously after what happened in Venezuela. And that is the point. John Thomas says, do you think World War III is on its way? No more than it's been on its way in the past 25 years. People have been talking about World War III since the 80s. No, since the 60s. People have been saying World War III is on its way since the 60s. Like, it would take a lot to trigger World War III, such as blowing up Israel or a full scale invasion of Taiwan backed by Russia, North Korea, and Iran. Though these are the sorts of things that would like every international conflict does not warrant the whole World War III discussion. There are conflicts that happen all the time, some of which we are not even privy to knowing about, that if people known about them would say, "Oh, this might trigger World War III." The fact of the matter is, we won't know until it actually happens. Look at what triggered the original World War, World War One, as it was known back then as the Great War, was the assassination of the archbishop of an archduke of some random fucking European country. His assassination led to the Great War, aka World War One. So there's really there's really no way to say what what will trigger World War III. Honestly, we won't know until it actually happens. But every international conflict does not really merit that conversation. I'm sure the folks in the Pentagon have to make that discussion, but that is on a higher level to which we are privy. Then I'm sorry, than what we are privy to knowing. Kick the theatrics. What's up, Moonlit? He says, I do worry about Taiwan, but I believe that was the goal to move battleships from Atlantic to Pacific years back. No. Well, so the thing is, mainland China has been threatening to invade Taiwan for the longest for the unification of China. I'm not going to get too much into that because I'm not trying to get my live stream demonetized by talking about those countries. Um, But um, this is all the new geopolitical strategy of the Indo-Pacific alliance. So that's all I'll say about that. I don't want to get into those countries because whenever I talk about that region, it gets me demonetized, and I'm not trying to get my live stream demonetized unless I'm getting people kicking up. It would be different if people are kicking up super chats or whatever, but there's no point in talking about something that'll get me demonetized if it'll kick out if it's not going if it's not people kicking up super chats. Um, but back to Venezuela, like I said, I don't care if it became the 51st state. I would welcome it. Uh, right now it is under our control, but seemingly it's still the same. It's still Maduro's administration down there. Um, but you know, unofficially, we have we have de facto control there. Although there's still many of his uh, officers are still running the country more or less. We'll see if how that how that transpires down the road. But the oil is ours, billions and billions of oil. It's about that oil, bitch. No, it's not. Actually, it wasn't just about the oil. It was way more strategic than that. For one, Nicolas Maduro was trying to strike a deal with China at the very time that this happened, that we extracted him. So that ain't happening. So China and Russia are left with their dicks in their hands. And for China, that's not going to be very much. um, and also, it's going to offset some of the stuff going on with the BRICS. If you know the whole thing about the BRICS countries and all that sort of stuff. Uh, Theatrics says it makes me think of the movie Little Giants, the NX of Puerto Rico. Well, like I was saying before you arrived, like I think we should stop dicking around and just make Puerto Rico a country. Make it a state. Like it's been like three presidents in the past 20 plus years. They kept saying, "Well, I think no, it's been longer than it's been since Clinton. It's been at least since Clinton that people have been saying, well, why don't we um, annex Puerto Rico and make it a state?" And they kept saying, well, we got to see if that's what the Puerto Rican people want. No, we don't. We didn't do it with the Hawaiians, and they weren't even our territory. We just openly just took we just openly invaded and conquered them and said, "You're ours now." There was no decision making with the native Hawaiians. And look, I mean, and you look at the state now; it's one of the richest countries in the union, but the native Hawaiians are the poorest people in the state. There's a bunch of wealthy white and Japanese people living in Hawaii. There's virtually no black people other than Barack Obama's fake black ass that was living there. The only black people you really see in Hawaii are the ones stationed there in the army. But the native Hawaiians are the native Hawaiians and Polynesian people are the poorest people in Hawaii, unless they're Hapa. The only Hawaiians, the only native Hawaiians you'll see that have money are usually Hapa. They're not even like full blooded native Hawaiians. They probably like they're a little bit of they're a little bit of Hawaiian, a little bit of white, a little bit of Japanese, a little bit of Chinese, of Filipino. Like most of the native Hawaiians are poor there. We didn't give them any decision making process. Puerto Rico is ours. Why not just make why not just make it a state? Like in the 21st century, I don't think we need to have just occupied territories anymore. Either make them a state or let them go, like we did with Palau. long time in the 20th century. Palau is an island country of off the coast of the Philippine Sea. I mean, it's within the neighboring region of the Philippine Sea next to the Philippines. That used to be a U.S. territory. It is not a sovereign state, but they still use American currency, and we have American military stationed there. So it's still a part of our military, uh, fortified by military and using and their currency is American currency. So great place to visit, especially if you're already in that part of the world in Southeast Asia. You can go from the Philippines and fly right on over to Palau. But that makes sense. So we're not if we're not going to keep it as a state, let them have sovereignty, and then we just make it a vassal state. We could do that with Venezuela, but just keeping it as an occupied territory, like I don't see the point. Even either let them be a sovereign state and be a vassal to us, or make them or incorporate them this into a state. Like I said, Puerto Rico could be a state, Guam could be a state, American Samoa could be a state. Um, the what is the other one? The U.S. minor outlying, whatever. Like we got three occupied territories in the Pacific that can be states, and then along with Puerto Rico, because I know a lot of people wouldn't want a 51st state because it would make the flag uneven stars. So make it even, make it 54. Make with a stroke of a pen, we can make it. We can have an even number of new states, 54 of them. Of course, if we include Venezuela, that'd be 55. Of course, if we include Greenland, that'd be 56. Of course, Canada wasn't a real option. That was just us trolling Canada. The action says, isn't technically America. My uncle moved to Florida from there. He says it's Florida with better food and less old people. You talking about Puerto Rico? But like I said, Venezuela, why not? Make it a 51st state. Let's make it happen. I mean, and as I was saying earlier on in the stream, is that if people know anything about 19th century American history, and most people don't, if most people knew 19th century American history, they would be a lot less reactional to everything that happens right now in politics because we've literally seen all this stuff happen before, more or less. Like 19th century American politics and history was a crazy time. um, and like I said, at one point, the United States was safeguarding the entire coast of North and South America from European conquest. So at any point, we could have all we could have made those all occupied territories of the United States or incorporated them into states, which we didn't. We allowed them to have their own sovereignty. So it's not a foregone conclusion of us now saying, "Hey, we're going to come here and clean Venezuela's clock and keep it for ourselves." That people wouldn't be mad at us for it, and that's another important thing. The actual people there would be happier to be a part of us than to be under a dictator's rule. And people are gonna say, "Well, but Trump is a dictator." Dictators aren't elected. I want to remind dictators aren't elected. Nicolas Maduro did not win his election. He's been a dictator for 25 years in Venezuela, despite losing the election. what many Venezuelans do want, they want to see the woman who actually won the election, I believe, what was it, 10 years ago, whenever it was, they would like to see her seated in his place. I don't know if that's going to happen. Honestly, I doubt it. But Nicolas Maduro was not the legitimate ruler of that country, if we're talking about dictators. And then also, it's funny because just what, 79 days ago, we had the whole No Kings protest with a bunch of angry old fucking boomers, hippies, a bunch of hippie boomers talking about No Kings protests. I even saw it around my way. Not a protest, but little signs up for the No Kings protest because I was wondering what that little sign meant. I had no idea. But these same hypocritical fucktards that were talking about no kings are now saying let leave that dictator alone. So which is it going to be? So other countries are fine to live in misery under authoritarian rule and military dictatorships, but America cannot have an elected leader because we don't like his politics, and so we're going to call him a dictator. Right. Look, no one has ever accused hippies of ever being smart. They were stupid as fuck back in the 60s and they're still stupid as fuck now. These were the same retards that used to grow their hair out and not bathe because they thought that made them more similar to Native Americans. Mind you, Native Americans bathe. On top of that, they have a gene variation, as do East Asians, that give them very little body odor, whereas white people stink. So, whatever. Um, Theatric says, I did not have Greenland on my predictions. I'm guessing rare minerals, oil, or extremely large land in a strategic position there are left over World War II bunkers there, I believe. It's not for their rare minerals. That doesn't come from Greenland. That um, it's because there's a strategic position for Arctic security. That's number one. But also it's for the people. It's like we shouldn't be obtuse and not realize that Trump wants the Greenland for the Greenland people, northern people of northern European stock who are prosperous and would bring white back into America. I have no problem with bringing more white people back into America. Um, they're not, Greenlanders are not problematic people. We already have quite a bit of military uh, stationed there, and like I said, it is technically part of the Denmark kingdom, but they don't protect it. We protect it. It's like, so if we're protecting the Greenland people, why not just make Greenland part of the US? Like, as I said earlier, Denmark is not going to stop an invading force coming into Greenland, especially as Greenland is a segue into coming into the US to attack. Denmark isn't going to stop it. Again, Denmark hasn't been in a war for almost 100 years. You see, yeah, I was uncle from Puerto Rico. The actions, yeah, you said it perfectly. More than once, dictators are not elected, right? But the same hippie boomers, they were mad at Trump calling him a dictator, saying no kings. Were mad that we captured an actual dictator who's murdered untold amounts of people and left his people in absolute squalor. I have a friend who befriended Venezuelan women there that he was, flirting with. This woman would say they would eat like I forgot, like one potato or something a day, and then they would sleep most of the day to conserve their energy. That's how bad it is. You eat like one potato or whatever a day, not a meal, a day, and then you try to sleep to conserve your energy so that you don't waste away. I'm sure none of you have ever lived that that level of squalor. On top of that, there's 22 million displaced Venezuelans across the globe that fled the country who celebrated that man's capture. Not to mention, this is a bipartisan thing. It has been both Democratic president administrations and Republican administrations that wanted him gone. The Biden administration had put out a $25 million bounty for his capture and conviction. Trump is the one who actually pulled it off. So we're mad at him for doing something that the Democrats wanted to do. This goes into what people call the Trump derangement syndrome because the man can literally do anything that liberals and progressives would love, but because he did it, they would hate it just off a knee jerk reflex. And so I want to be clear as someone who does have some background in psychology, there's no such thing as Trump derangement syndrome, but it does point to actual mental health illness. The people accused of Trump derangement syndrome do actually have mental health problems. They have acute mental health problems to be addressed. And so I have no problem if MAGA world wants to call these people suffering from Trump derangement syndrome because their mental health illness is tied to their to making politics a part of their personal identity. And I've said this a number of times. People who poli- make their whole personal identity about politics have mental health problems. And that's on the left and the right. If all of your personal identity is tied to politics, you need to touch grass. And it's, these liberals and progressives have made their whole identity about hating Trump and only dealing with people who also hate Trump. And they assume because I'm black that I'm going to align with them. And I'm like, no, especially these white feminist liberal bitches. I'm like, I don't know what makes you think I would align with people who have taken advantage of the black community for 60 years and have never given anything back to the black community since the Civil Rights Act of 1964. But you're sorely mistaken if you think if I align with you. Like, to be honest, back in 2016, I was against them because I was being a good little progressive that I was, and I was Bernie bro at the time. But there's a lot of Bernie bros who are jaded and now Trump supporters, and I'm one of them. The answer is yeah, we basically lived in rivers. So isn't Greenland a European problem? Well, no, Greenland isn't a European problem because Greenland is here on this side of the on this side of the pond. You're probably you're probably confusing Greenland with Iceland. No, Greenland is basically an extension of Canada, but it's owned by the Kingdom of Denmark. Um, as a matter of fact, like it was the Vikings who first explored North America after the indigenous Americans themselves had landed here, but they've never developed it. Um, I mean, back then they never developed it. Uh, but no, Greenland is an American problem because Greenland is situated here on this side of the pond. It's right above, Maine. So it would be our problem because, like I said, it's part of our Arctic security. And if people were going to invade coming from the north, Greenland would be a way to do so. It wouldn't be easily done because again, we do have U.S. military stationed there as a treaty with Denmark. We are they basically Greenland is under our military protection, and like I said, the fact that it's already under our military protection, and they've given us the ability to fortify it as much as we want. If we can fortify it with our own military as much as we want, why not just make it part of us? Why not just make Greenland part of the U.S. in total? Like I said, if we decide to take Greenland, it wouldn't be militarily so because again, we already literally have military there. This would be uh, this would be a socio political maneuver. In fact, we could literally Denmark could literally just have a vote by Greenlanders of whom they would rather uh, they be a part of to remain a part of the Kingdom of Denmark or to be a part of the U.S. And if they voted yes to the U.S., there you go. It would be a legitimate acquisition. I mean, taking aside all the other technical issues. The actually says that sounds horrific to live that way. That's North Korea bad, living on insects. Well, yeah, North Korea is another hot topic for another day. But yeah, I mean, people in Venezuela are living in poverty when they have the think about it. Think about how bad that is, though. This is why communism doesn't work. They have the biggest oil reserves in the world, but living in abject poverty. Those two aren't congruent. This is the same thing that happens in sub-Saharan Africa. Many of the poorest countries in Africa have the most abundant natural resources in the world: oil, gold, diamonds, coffee, peanuts, salt. These should be very wealthy countries, but it goes again to show that it's not having natural resources itself. Well, excuse me, it's not having natural resources itself that makes a country wealthy, especially if you're dealing with a corrupt government, a corrupt and incompetent government, which is pretty much the case in all of sub-Saharan Africa. And again, I don't want to be insulting, but I've also tied this to the intellectual disparity amongst different racial groups in a previous live stream. And people can say I'm off base here or I'm being racist or I'm wrong or whatever, but it is a fact of the matter that the average IQ in sub-Saharan Africa is 68. 68. That is borderline intellectual dysfunction. That doesn't speak to every individual. It just speaks for them as a group. Black people in general have the lowest IQ of all races, but it differs because at least with Black Americans, it's 85, which is the lowest in America. But Black Africans are even lower at 68. So when people don't think intelligence has nothing to do with people's success, they're being obtuse. They're being disingenuous. So as much as I like people like Nicholas Nassim Talib, he's being completely obtuse when he's saying I that America just uses IQ to shame other people. No, no, they don't. IQ is a legitimate psychological um, phenomenon that is measurable, is a quantifiable and measurable um, psychological property that correlates to general intelligence. And so if people think IQ and general intelligence are real, they're just being willfully blind, because if you think that in a region of the world where the people's IQ collectively is no higher than 68, that won't lead to disastrous results within those countries, you're not being honest with yourself. Like I said, the sub-Saharan Africa has the most world's most abundant resources. They should, off those resources alone, they should be, sub-Saharan Africa should be the most prosperous place in the world. Instead, it's the poorest and most destitute and saddest places to live. The actually says, well, let's say Venezuela does become the 51st state. On that token, would we see the same with China and Russia? I don't know what you mean. What will happen is, well, what was happening now is that now that we are claiming Venezuela as our own, China and Russia no longer have access to that oil, and China needs that oil badly for their cities and infrastructure to operate. Venezuela being one of those fugues, one of those rogue nations that you know was allied with China, they depended on them for oil. So now they have to go to the Middle East for their sources. So we that was very strategic. This is why it might be it might be advantageous for us to never relinquish Venezuela as a sovereign state, and to keep it as part of our own, to keep the biggest one of the biggest oil reserves in the world out of their hands, out of China and Russia's hands. Because again, they were literally working something out before he was before Maduro was extracted to America. The actions of Russia, I don't think they are thinking of Ukraine as much as the 7 or 8 surrounding smaller countries, the OG USSR. There, no, Ukraine is a big part of Russia's. Uh, um, there, Ukraine has resources, and there's many ethnic Russians in Ukraine, and Ukraine has been tied to Russia for millennia. Like the rivalry between them and their intrinsic ties to each other has gone on for over a millennia. This so on top of that, we made it hot with NATO putting putting NATO in threatening to put NATO in Ukraine, and Russia did not want NATO on its borders. And for people not to understand that, think of if how we would feel if Russia has stationed uh, military posts along the United States of America in places like Cuba and other places. We wouldn't like that. We would find that to be very threatening. They felt the same way. So the actually says Dick Cheney is playing the board game Risk from his grave. Yeah, I don't know. Risk. The problem with Risk is it always show things always came apart when you tried to tackle the Middle East. When I played it, or was that Stratego? Like I always got Risk and Stratego mixed up, but I think it was definitely we were playing Risk, and every time I used to play with my friends, when like we could capture parts of Latin America and Europe and Africa and Asia, those went pretty swimmingly. But as soon as we all started trying to vie for parts of the Middle East, Risk would go to hell. the the game would go to hell. It seemed like that's the real. the real case in real time as well. Uh, hey Tina, were you under a different name before? Seemed like we chatted before, maybe. Oh, guys, you like my new Chinese calendar here for 2026? My new calendar from a Chinese takeout close to me. They gave it out for New Year's, which was pretty freaking cool. They actually says Poland and Finland. I could see Putin glaring at them. Finland, I don't, not really. Like Finland was Finland was not part of the USSR. Poland was behind the wall. Like you got to think if you're thinking of like the Cold War era. Um, if Finland was on outside of the street. Poland was on their side of the street begrudgingly. Oh, Tina is a mod of yours. Okay. Well, welcome here. The actually, you're right. I'm thinking of the small country. I never remember the name. Well, I mean, the ones that were part of, part of the USSR, places like Belarusia. I mean, Belarus, Estonia, all those sort of places. Hey, you're welcome. Um, but yeah, but again, getting back to America, like I said, um, I, occupying Venezuela and possibly even attacking Colombia and Cuba would be a part of an America First policy because it's literally securing our borders since it's here. Transnistria, that's not a country. Transylvania, which is a region of Romania. Transnistria, that's not a country. I'm guessing that's a typo. Lithuania, Estonia. Let me let me look it up. And then on top of that, it may not be a European country. You might be talking about a country in Central Asia. A lot of people confuse a lot of countries that were part of the Soviet Union as being part of Europe, but they were part of Central Asia. Okay, so okay, you did spell it right. Transnistria, landlocked breakaway state. Uh, it was part of okay, it's a breakaway state that was part of Moldova. Mm, see, uh, well, the fact that it's not even talked about, I don't think is really a. I don't think really it's not of concern. But again, we're talking about how does Venezuela and Latin American countries fit into the American First policy, and whether that justifies it becoming a 51st state or possibly other Latin American countries, not Europe. The whole point of the discussion of talking about Venezuela being a 51st state and whether it's an American First policy is because basically, as American First policy, we're saying like basically fuck Europe. We're just going to concentrate on stuff here on this side of the pond. Um, and the consideration with Greenland is that effectively, if we were to make occupy Greenland, that would kind of nullify NATO. But again, that would be part of um, solidifying parts of Latin America under the U.S. as either vassal states or part of our own country. Is that it would keep Russia and China at bay. And like I said, Europeans are already mad that we're basically saying like NATO's not doing much for us. NATO's for the benefit of is a post World War II construction that was supposed to keep Europe safe, and an America First policy is basically saying fuck Europe. You guys need to fight your own wars. Like both world wars started there, and we had to intervene, costing them American lives. Um, and the EU is chagrined at the thought that America wouldn't be backing them up anymore with NATO if we pulled out of NATO. The the irony is that the EU Europeans love shitting on America. They love talking about Trump, but now they're fearful if we were to say fuck NATO and say we're just going to worry about our borders. We're going to worry about Latin America. We're going to worry about, you know, it's like we'll deal with them as far as trade, but as far as military alliances, fuck them. And it would be great instead of being the police of the world, which I do still kind of agree with us doing so, because with great power comes great responsibility. But I could understand if we leveraged more of our uh, more of our military and our um, political economics towards Latin America than towards Europe, which we're not getting much out of, and to constantly have them waving their finger at our president, but then expecting him still to like fund NATO and to put up a protection for them against Russia. It's like, oh, you want our protection, but you want to shit on us, huh? It's like the ungrateful child who hates his parents uh, and talks badly about them, but still expects the parents to feed to clothe and feed them. So that's how I see the EU and how they deal with America. Like you have no problem shitting on us, on our culture, on our president, on our military decisions, but you still want our backing when it comes to you know threats from Russia and to keep the EU solvent. Can't have it both ways. at some point we'll be like, just like the parent who says to the child, well, since you're grown now, you can leave the house and do your own things since you don't like how it is here. You don't like how I run this house. Well, you're fine to leave. You're perfectly welcome to leave and fend for yourself. And then the child gets all offended. But how can you just put me out on my own? No, you were grown. You were talking all that big talk. Like, you don't need us. You don't you don't like how I run the house. You don't want to do any chores. You always talking bad about us. You think you can do better. You think you're smarter you think you're smarter than your parents. It's all right. You're smarter than us. You're better than us. You're more sophisticated. You know how to do things we don't. Go ahead and do that. Go ahead on your own and go do that. That's that's basically America. That's that seems to be the America first stance towards the EU, and I'm here for it. Fuck Europe. um, Theatric says Venezuela being American soil. I'm for it. It's dirty though. Fantastic strategic military stronghold. I'm gonna search their biggest imports exports. Oil. It's oil. Oil and big booty Latinas. There you go. Oil and big booty Latinas. That's it. Oil and big booty Latinas. there's a lot of indigenous people that live in Venezuela too. It's oil 90%, aluminum, organic chemicals, Venezuela's biggest exports, and big booty Latinas. Big booty Latinas. And amazingly, do not confuse a Colombian with a Venezuelan. Those girls will swing on you if you confuse them for the other, because they're both hot. Colombian women are hot. Let's keep it a buck. uh, the Venezuelan women are hot, but don't you dare confuse them. They will swing on you. Well, they probably won't swing on you, but they might cuss you out, and that would just sound good anyway, the way they in their accent. But anyway, um, and that's why there's so many passport bros down in Colombia. But yeah, anyway, and it would be more in Venezuela, but again, Venezuela has been a hostile country, so. Um, oh, did you see? I finally got a new Hulk. I had to buy a new one because my old one I had Hulk and Andre the Giant, and like 13 years ago I gave it away to my nephew. He didn't care for it. My sister just threw it away. I'm like, why'd you throw it away? You could have just gave it back to me. So I had to buy a new one. I'm not gonna buy Andre the Giant just because I don't want to buy both back. But I had to have Hulk after he died. But I wish I still had Andre the Giant as well. And I had some WCW wrestlers, but I don't remember whom they were. I gave those to him. So she threw all those away. My Andre the Giant, my Hulk Hogan, and my WCW wrestlers. Fuck. The actually is, he said, if you don't know now, you know, the White House. Wow, is that real? Y'all trolling me hard. Pause. Pause. Oh, and yeah, that video with that, yes, the White House actually released that. I'm not trolling at all. That the White House actually released. They didn't make the video. They reposted it on the White House official Instagram. They did actually release that. That's not a joke. That's what makes it so funny is that they posted that. That's if you don't believe me, go to the White House Instagram channel. You'll see it yourself. I wasn't. I don't make up stuff like that. It's funny because it's funny. It, It's so much funny that it's true. Yes, they actually released that. The big booty Latinas is the biggest export import of Latin America. Big booty Latinas. Look, even Kevin Samuels, the late great Kevin Samuels, had a big booty Latina before he died. It's funny that he was trying to keep black relationships going, but he kept saying in his live streams to black women, "Look, your biggest threat isn't Becky. Your biggest threat is Maria or Marisol." And he was right. He himself was with a Latina woman when he died. Uh, his friend and lawyer Dennis, he he got with a pretty Latina too, whom he married. She was Afro Latina because she's from the Dominican Republic, but the woman that Kevin Samuels was with, she did an interview with Dennis Sperling. She's Mexican. I mean, she could be Afro Mexican. I think, but I think she was just straight like uh Mexican Mexican. When I say Mexican Mexican, I'm talking about like most Mexicans are like mestizo. So I hope you sub, Tina. I would love to see you in this space more often. And if you're interested, I can definitely make you a mod as well. Need more female mods. I find from experience that female mods are way more protective uh, of the content creators than even the guys for whatever reason. The actually says Hulkamania still runs wild. And you better believe it, brother. What you want to do when you get these 50-inch pythons on? Let me stop. Pause. But yeah, go if you don't believe me, go ahead and take like a 30-second break. Go to Instagram. Oh, that's right. You don't have Instagram, or well, or if the wifey has it, I don't know. But yeah, go to Instagram, the White House Instagram channel. That was on there. And I was like, wait, this ain't because someone else had reposted it. So I was like, oh, that's probably not real. So I went to the actual White House Instagram channel. I'm like, oh no, they actually did post that. He said, no way, that's so much funny. I know, right? Oh, you sub. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. If you want, you can. Sure. Um, just well, let let us know a little bit about yourself if you don't mind. Nothing personal, but just whatever that Moonlit knows. Uh, the actually says the White House is so out of pocket for that. I love it. It's hilarious. At least they edited out the nigga part. It's like if you don't know, now you know. Nigga, like they took that part out. Not gonna lie, if they kept that part in, that 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 would just be legendary status. That would be straight legendary status if they kept that in. But the fact like they released that with because it was like the beginning of the video is showing Nicolas Maduro speaking Spanish saying, "And you won't come and get me, you coward." Then it's like then they show 160th coming in, and them 160th fly boys coming in and scoop him up and seeing Trump walking down the stage. And like, if you don't know, then you know. And they play the Biggie music. I'm like, yo, you got. I was like, this is not from the White House. And I was like, oh shit, this is actually from the White House. Tina says Hulk has an amazing family. He does. His daughter was so pretty. Well, that's probably why she was with the black guy, and that's what caused all the controversy because he said he don't want to. He's like he don't want a ninja dating his daughter unless he said unless the ninja is a straight up something something ninja. Like some I don't remember. I wasn't offended. I don't care. Like the dude, this be look, people can say something offensive does not mean they themselves are racist. The dude has worked with black people his entire wrestling career. Like who if you really felt that if you felt that strongly about black people, he wouldn't have worked with them. So I like I said, I don't care. This is something that triggered younger folks. Then it didn't trigger me. Didn't care. So what you know. Tina says, "What would you like to know?" I'm an open book. Well, not again, nothing personal because I don't want you because this is for everyone. This because everyone can see what you type, so I won't want you, putting out here like your red shoe diaries or anything like that. I'm joking. You probably don't even get the joke, the red shoe diaries thing. That was a a, a one of those old Showtime after hours movies that became a regular show on Showtime. It was like the Showtime's equivalent to Skinamax, basically. Anyway, so I used to watch the show uh, where he was being overprotective of his daughters. Yeah, I remember his reality show. So remember that's when all the celebrities started coming up with reality shows was like in the 2000s. He wasn't they the funny thing, he wasn't that overprotective to me because I remember at the time when his daughter was 16, she was dating a 21-year-old. And I'm like, yo, that's cool with the Hulk. I don't know if anyone else remembers that, but I remember that from the reality show. Like he was letting his 16-year-old daughter date a 21-year-old man. I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, I guess it was in Florida, so it was legal, but for a lot of people, that would have been a, a moment to grab your Glock. So I don't know. What's up, Eric? He says Venezuela should be the 51st state, South Korea should be the 52nd, and Canada should become a territory. I don't want them to be able to vote. um, South Korea, I I don't know about that one. I haven't thought about it. Like they don't like we have an alliance with them for sure, but I wouldn't see. I would be I would be more okay with like the Philippines becoming a state than South Korea. Like they have they are very congruent to American culture. I could like the Philippines, yeah. I can see the Philippines. South Korea, not so much. What I would like for South Korea would be reunification with the North, but under South Korean governance, not North Korean governance, obviously. And that has literally been sort of like what's been going on is like there's been this sort of because technically South Korea and North Korea have never ended the war, which is why we still are stationed you know at the DMZ line where there's heated tensions. The There's been a treaty in effect since 1950, was it 1953 or 1954? But technically, the war has never ended. It's just wartime hostilities have ended, but the war itself is still like kind of ongoing. So there's been sort of this whole strategic look at it as waiting out the demise of North Korea on its own through its own destitution. But it never happens because every time they run out of resources, they threaten to blow up shit, and then we end up sending them more food and money. I mean, not well, I don't think money, but we send them like food and resources, and other countries do as well. When they say, "I'm gonna blow up Japan, I'm gonna blow up South Korea," shit, I'm gonna blow all this shit up if y'all hand over some motherfucking ham sandwiches out this bitch. Shit, fuck this. We hungry out this bitch. Even though the fucking leader is fat as hell, but all the people in North Korea are starving like a motherfucker. They even have fake. Like I thought this was made up in that Seth Rogen movie. Uh, when they came into the country and they have these little fake towns that look like everyone is doing well. that's like a whole theatrical thing they actually do for people who actually end up visiting the country to look like things are not so bad there. They actually have these little fake little towns. So people are doing poorly there. The only people not suffering are the people who are part of the North Korean regime. The regular folks not doing well. I, so I don't know if I would support them becoming the 51st state. I would rather. I think South Korea's would be have better political stability if they had a reunification of Korea under South Korean governance. I think that would be their best play. The actors I should have left it in. That's way more tough. Pause. Pause. What? Pause. What are we talking about? Tina says I'm a mama three, mom, um, mama of eight. I subscribe to a group of wonderful people who have definitely taught me a lot. Excuse me. Some are definitely off the hook, but definitely teaching me more than the school did. That's what's up. Uh, Kick the ashes of South Korea. That would be definitely extremely difficult. Yeah, like I said, I think the reunification of Korea would be a more optimal outcome for South Korea than it becoming a state. Besides, they enjoy their own sovereignty and culture, and I'm pretty sure that would be a non-starter for them, for both their government and for their citizenry. I think that's just a complete non-starter. I think a better outcome for them would be the reunification of Korea, North and South. He said it would be great if the Koreans would reunite. Yep, Eric says, and a lot of reprogramming. You see, my bad. You just said it. But yeah, let me go ahead and make Tina my welcome to the team. Every time I see Tina, I keep thinking of Tina Marie. I think you're old school, so you probably know who Tina Marie is. So when I see your name, I keep thinking. When I kept saying, I was thinking Tina Marie for some reason. She said definitely reprogramming would need to be done for reunification. Like I said, the whole hope for reunification was to just wait out North Korea's natural demise, as most communist states tend to, fall. Like look all the ones that fell in Africa. Cuba's well on his way. Other than it's been supported by other rogue states across the world, which is why it hasn't crumbled yet. And the people of Cuba are wonderful folks. So me saying that the the country should their nation should fall. I mean their government, not the people. I'll never. I don't fault the people for their government unless the people wanted that government, and I think it's about at best at best half and half with Cuba. The ones who didn't, many of them have fled, which mean what might make it more so seem that the people there are in support of it. But I think it's still half and half at best. We will only know if if uh, Trump designed to take them out. Uh, Although, like I said, res- Fidel was able to resist many attempted coups by the CIA itself, and ended up dying of his own natural causes and passing on the country to his brother, Raul Castro. I don't know if Raul Castro is still in charge or has been passed down to someone else, but the U.S. has attempted to topple Cuba for the past 60 years. They couldn't do it. I mean, they even sent women in to try to like seduce him and assassinate him. It was one such case where this is a young Fidel, right? They sent in a what was called in intelligence as a honeypot, and she's in there, and she had a gun or a knife or something, He was like, "You gonna kill me?" And that now, obviously, I don't speak with a Cuban accent, but this would probably sound much sexier if I had a Cuban accent. But imagine, and also imagine the young Fidel, not the old Fidel. Imagine what Fidel looked like back in the 50s. He was I don't judge men on their looks, but most women would find the young 1950s Fidel Castro quite attractive. I'll say that. So imagine a young, attractive Fidel Castro with the smooth Cuban accent, talking to this little honeypot vixen who's sent there to assassinate him. And he's like, "You gonna kill me? Go ahead, kill me." And he unbuttons his shirt, exposing his chest. "You gonna kill me? Go ahead and kill me. Go ahead. You're not gonna kill me. You don't want to kill me." That bitch was wet. She couldn't do it. She couldn't do it. Like he was like, "Go ahead and kill me." She was like, "But I can't." He's like, "You don't want to kill me. You don't want to kill me." Again, imagine that in a Cuban accent with a 1950s Fidel Castro, not the old fat thick mustache cigar swigging Castro. A 30 year, I guess in his late 30s, early 40s Castro, smooth. How do you turn a honeypot? How do you? She's there to seduce you. He seduced the honeypot. That's the kind of shit Fidel was on. He seduced the honeypot. He died of his own natural causes. So I mean, if Trump was going to send people in to attack Cuba, uh, and mind you, we can stage it from Guantanamo Bay because that still belongs to us. And that's I know a lot of people confuse how's Guantanamo Bay, which is part of Cuba, belong to the U.S. Long story, but yeah. The actor says Eric living in Southeast Asia. I've met a few North Koreans, the best Koreans. Just kidding. Escapees, and they are shocked to just sit and eat with Americans and see people walk around the city. It's shocking to them. Yeah, I mean, or there's YouTube videos here on YouTube where you'll see North Koreans seeing how strong when they actually see what the American military is like because they've been force fed all this propaganda that America ain't shit, or they see how well we eat over here, how like stuff we take for granted, and they are in shock and awe of how prosperous it is here. Socialism does not work. So Tina says, "Thank you." You're welcome. Oh, Shell. Okay. Because I was talking about the Biggie sound, bruh. Stop making me laugh. I mean, oh no, I mean you know what said. Never mind. But Tina says, "Well, where's my food kick?" I know, right? For real, because I'm hungry too. Because as soon as I get off this live, I'm going to go eat, guys. I'm already hungry. I was I was I was thinking I wasn't going to get anyone to talk here, so I was about to go, I was about to get off like 30 minutes ago. He said, "I can't type literally ever." Yeah. Tina says, "A friend of mine, a station in Guantanamo during their military career. Yeah. Were they Marines? Marines or Navy? I think it's mostly Marines at Gitmo. I mean, it's not a bad place to be stationed. So, see, what are you going to eat? I'm hungry, been sick. So I have some rice I'm going to fry. Um, I do it the Filipino style where I make my rice and then I just wait to the next day and fry it up um, with like garlic. like Filipino garlic fried rice, basically. But what I'll do is I'll use a ramen packet to flavor it. Then I'm gonna pour some stew over that, and I have some leftover steak as well. So that's what's on the menu. Marine. That's what I figured. But anyway, guys, I'm about to go. I'm making myself hungry, and I'm starving. I haven't eaten since this morning. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to relate to that. And again, like I said, oh, by the way, can we pull up the U.S. territories? Because that was I kept forgetting the other Pacific Island uh, territory that we own this occupied. I hate this keyboard. Damn, space bar doesn't work. So, like I said, in the what I would like to see in the 21st century is no more territories. Either we make our territories into states, or we let them go become sovereign states that are vassals to us. It just having occupied territory just seems it just seems pretty a gauche nowadays in the 21st century, just having territories. But yeah, like I said, we can easily make Puerto Rico the 51st state. Like, this has been a debate, ongoing debate for the past 25 years. Let's stop saying let's leave it up to a vote to them and just do it. No matter what, it's always going to be half against, half for. Just do it. Fuck them. No, I'm not saying. Then Guam, of course, and then American Samoa, and then the other U.S. occupied territory was the Northern Mariana Islands. Like I said, the I'm not talking about the unincorporated territories, because there's like people not living there. Like, pretty much the only people there are like people there for like military reasons, or reasons of scientific research, like the Palmyra Atoll. But those will be, and then we have the U.S. Virgin Islands. I forgot about them, so that's 55. But to make it even, Venezuela, we have 56 new states, like Puerto Rico, Guam, American Samoa, Northern Mariana Islands, U.S. Virgin Islands, and guys, like, a lot of these people from these territories are in our military. Like, I've seen, like, this is where I would see Puerto Ricans. I remember they actually were on our were posted what came to our post to train with us once. It was a bunch of folks from Puerto Rico. They was cool as shit. They were cool as shit. Like, I wish they had stayed longer and and worked with us. They were cool. There's a lot of folks from American Samoa that go into the military for the obvious benefits. On top of that, with American Samoa, what happens is there will be a lot of people from Western Samoa, which is the nearby island, but it's not part of the United States territory. So a lot of what happens is, you just like we complain about people here in the continental U.S., where um, foreigners will come here and have their babies, their anchor babies, just so they can be American, which will keep the parents here to take care of the babies. So a lot of people from Western Samoa do the same thing. They go over to American Samoa to have their children. So even though it's a territory, this kid will be an American citizen. Like I said, a lot of those men join the military. Mariana Islands as well. Oh, I'm sorry, no. So the American Samoa, if they're born there, they become U.S. nationals, but not U.S. citizens. And so, like I'm saying, let's just make these five occupied territories just states. What's the point? Like, if we're not going to make them states, then just let them be sovereign, uh, and make them vassals of the U.S. the way Palau is. Like in the 20th century, Palau was a U.S. territory, but we gave them their own independence, and they're basically a vassal state to us. Like our U.S. military is stationed in Palau, which is offside of the Philippines, and U.S. they use U.S. currency as their currency. The Philippines, that could have remained our territory. We gave them their sovereignty, which is their Independence Day. You know, after we freed them from the Japanese occupation. Well, they have two independence. Like there was first their independence from Spain. Unfortunately, the Philippines didn't get the memo that Spain has sold the Philippines to America, which resulted in the Philippine American War that lasted like less than a year, and they were a part of us until Japan invaded and took over. And afterwards, we gave them their independence. Um, so I see the Philippines becoming, and it might be better. They're I love the Philippines. The people are wonderful. Their government is so corrupt though. They could be better off being a U.S. state or territory. Um, I don't see how Korea factored into that. That no. um, and like I said, Greenland. Greenland can just the the Danish government can literally just give it up to a vote to the Greenlanders, whether they would like to be incorporated into the United States. I think they won't because they're probably scared that the Greenlanders would probably say yes. uh, although I think honestly it'll probably be split somewhere 50-50, and it will probably be a slight majority one way or the other, but I don't know which way it would go. But Denmark being, part of our Arctic security, it would make sense to make it a part of the United States. Like we're already, responsible for its defense anyway. So, but yes, that's all I gotta say about that. Um, Tina, this has definitely been great listening to you and learning from the Self and Kick. Thank you. Uh, the address is and those Asia Pacific islands. Think I don't remember. Yeah, so I make I would. I mean, we already have Hawaii, so why not make Guam and the Northern Mariana Islands states? And then while we're at it, Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands, which would shore up our borders on in the Caribbean. So we will have 55 new states. And then, like I said, there's also the possibility, not saying it would actually happen, but the possibility of Venezuela and or Greenland. Either way, I would just want it to be an even number. I don't want it to be an odd number because we haven't had an odd number of states in almost 100 years. We had Alaska and Hawaii, right? So 49 states is a weird number, so 51 states would be weird as well. I'd rather be 52 states to keep it even, or it'd be better if at least 54. That way, it would still keep the flag, how it is. And I wonder if there, how much of it is simply not wanting to alter, how our flag looks, but not, adding new states. Like I said, I'm all for adding new states. Let's just make it even so it doesn't look weird on our flag. Because 51 or 49 stars just looks weird unless we change one. Oh, then there's also DC. DC has been up for statehood for like ever. So there's always been a discussion of making DC a state. As far as DC, for the tax, as far as taxation and representation, it makes sense. But aside from giving them better representation, to me, it doesn't make to keep it as a federal district seems doesn't seem like a bad idea to me. I don't think so. Aside from the territories, because DC isn't a U.S. territory, it's a federal district. So I don't think DC needs to become a state. What I do think is that they could change how it's run to give the people of DC more actual representation within Congress. Like they have delegates that they send to Congress, but the delegates don't have the status of congressional members, right? So I get the lack of representation while being taxed as a citizen. Uh, being that DC was originally a land granted from the state of Maryland, you could also just keep it as a federal district and make it part of the state of Maryland. Like that's another thing you could do instead of giving DC its own statehood. It could be it could be re um it, it can just be brought back into the state of Maryland and keep its status as a federal district. So that would also do the trick as well. Uh, Tina says there was a huge debate before Hawaii became a U.S. state. At least I think I'm remembering that right. There probably was. That was before my time. I think it was before all our times. But what I was saying was that we simply stole Hawaii. So the whole gripe about Venezuela, um, or even Puerto Rico becoming a state, to me is laughable because we just stole Hawaii from a sovereign kingdom, and then later they decided to annex it and it became a U.S. state. Um, Alaska was bought from Russia, right? That made sense. So in that same sense, how we bought Alaska from Russia, we could buy Greenland from Denmark. But like I said, I think we should that would be a great part of the beginning of the 21st century is to start with some new states. And like I said, Trump is trolling. I Trump is trolling is I highly doubt that he would acquire Greenland through military force, especially as we already have military stationed there for our mutual defense. Like I said, what be more likely the case is that we make Denmark a generous offer for Greenland, or that they or that Denmark allows us citizens of Greenland to put it to a vote. That seemed like that would be more the case than us simply taking it militarily. But be sure that he's not trolling when he says he would like Greenland to be part of America. He was trolling Canada by saying he would make them the 51st state. Now that was trolling, but there was some truth behind it as far as he wants Canada to be in better in better on better terms with America. Greenland, oh yeah, he means that he wants Greenland to be a part of America though. That's not trolling. What he was it when he was talking about taking it by force, now that's trolling. He's not going to take Greenland by force. At least I don't think so. I don't see how that would why that would be the case when we're already there militarily. Tina says I'm military. I posted and trained in quite a few of those different areas as well. Yep, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Since we're already there in a strategically, why not just make them states? And since these people are national, so they don't even get the vote on that. um, let's just make them most of those people would welcome it. Some would be against it because you're not going to find unification of opinion anywhere. But most of them would be for it because it would confer to them many economic benefits, as well as to be able to freely move between their islands and the continental U.S. So, Tina says, "No, I didn't know that. That's a bit of information. That's quite interesting." Yeah, Alistair, what's up? Says my dad lived in Hawaii for 7 years. Cool. Oh, Tina says I invited another friend to come check out the channel. Oh yeah, more than welcome. Thank you. Appreciate it. The more the merrier. Oh, my volume went down. I'm sorry. Oh, it's your device. Okay. Well, anyway, I'm gonna go. It's been almost 2 hours in. Pause. But um, I'm gonna go eat since Moonlit was already talking about. I sorry, I still call him Moonlit, but since he was talking about food and I'm hungry because I haven't eaten since this morning, so I'm gonna go do that. But we can keep the conversation going for folks in the comment section, and if this is something cool, like I can always bring this back up on another live as well. But I appreciate it. Thank you, Alistair, as well. Moonlit, everyone, Eric. I'll try to do a live again tomorrow around the same time, same bat channel. But unless there's any other questions, I'll give it a second, and then I'll be gone. Uh, Check my stats here. Oh, I forgot to set a goal for gifts or super chats. Oh well, I'll do that next time. All right, well, I'm out, guys. Take care. Thank you to my new mod, Tina. I'm out.